Most people believe discipline is the answer. They think if they could just wake up earlier, push harder, be stricter with themselves, everything would fall into place. But discipline without clarity doesn't last. It burns fast and disappears even faster. You can force yourself for a day, maybe a week, but eventually resistance wins. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. You cannot consistently do what is important until you are absolutely clear about why it matters. Clarity always comes before discipline. When you wake up in the morning, your brain is already under attack. Messages, noise, expectations, other people's priorities. If you don't decide in advance what deserves your energy, the world will happily decide for you. And the world rarely chooses what's important for your life. That's why people feel busy but empty, productive but unfulfilled, exhausted but unchanged. They are doing a lot but not the right things. Important work doesn't come with alarms. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't create urgency. In fact, it often feels optional. And that's exactly why it gets postponed. Again and again. Until weeks turn into years. The problem isn't time. The problem isn't motivation. The problem is unclear priorities. When something truly matters to you, you don't need reminders. You don't need pressure. You don't need external validation. Move toward it naturally. Think about the things you genuinely care about, people you love, values you refuse to compromise on. You don't negotiate with yourself about those, you just act. So when you struggle to do what's important, it's not because you lack discipline, it's because you haven't defined importance deeply enough. Clarity gives direction to effort. Without clarity, discipline feels like punishment. With clarity, discipline feels like loyalty. To yourself, to your future, to something bigger than your current mood. People wait for clarity to magically appear. It doesn't. You have to create it. And creating clarity requires asking uncomfortable questions. Questions most people avoid because the answers demand responsibility. What actually matters in my life right now? What am I willing to sacrifice for it? And what distractions am I pretending are necessary, but are really just convenient? These questions strip away excuses. They force honesty. And honesty is uncomfortable, but it's powerful. Because once you're clear, everything changes. You stop arguing with yourself every morning. You stop overthinking simple decisions. You stop chasing everything and start protecting something. Clarity simplifies life. When you know what matters, saying no becomes easier. Not painless, but easier. You no longer need to explain yourself to everyone. You no longer feel guilty for prioritizing long-term growth over short-term comfort. You understand that every yes has a cost, and you choose to pay only for what aligns with your purpose. And here's something people rarely talk about. Clarity reduces stress. Not because life becomes easier, but because decisions become simpler. Indecision is exhausting. Constantly wondering if you're doing the right thing drains more energy than hard work ever will. Clarity removes that mental noise. It gives your effort a home. That's when discipline stops feeling like force and starts feeling like structure. You don't force yourself to work on what matters. You return to it again and again, even after failure, even after doubt, because you know why it deserves your attention. This is how consistency is built, not through intensity, but through alignment. People who achieve meaningful things aren't obsessed with doing more. They are obsessed with doing less, but better. They narrow their focus. They eliminate the unnecessary. They understand that energy is limited and wasting it is a choice. Clarity helps you protect your energy. You stop spending your best hours on your least important tasks. You stop giving peak focus to low-impact activities. You stop confusing motion with progress. Instead, you ask a simple question before you act. Does this move me closer to what truly matters? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter how urgent it feels. If the answer is yes, you do it, even when it's uncomfortable. That's the real test. Because clarity doesn't remove discomfort. It gives discomfort meaning. Hard work without meaning feels heavy. Hard work with meaning feels purposeful. And purpose changes how long you can endure. This is why forcing yourself only works when it's guided by clarity. Otherwise, you're just pushing against yourself. Eventually something breaks, motivation, confidence, or self-trust. But when clarity leads, force becomes commitment. And commitment builds identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You become someone who chooses. chooses growth over distraction, chooses focus over noise, chooses importance over urgency, and over time, those choices compound, not dramatically, quietly, day by day, decision by decision, until one day people look at your life and call it discipline. But you know the truth? It started with clarity. Most people believe that being busy is the same as being productive. They wake up early, stay L, 8, check emails, respond to messages, attend meetings, and somehow convince themselves that all this activity equals progress. But being busy is easy. Anyone can be busy. Being productive is different. It requires intention. It requires purpose. It requires saying no to almost everything so you can say yes to what truly matters. Urgency is seductive. Urgency makes us feel alive, important, necessary. It tricks our brains into thinking that motion equals achievement. You answer the notifications immediately because they feel important. You respond to someone else's crisis because it feels urgent. You attend meetings that drain you but look impressive on paper. And by the end of the day, you are exhausted, yet your dreams remain untouched, your goals unchanged. Urgency steals your life while masquerading as productivity. The problem is not that urgent things exist. The problem is that we let them hijack our attention. If we do not learn to distinguish between what is urgent and what important, we will live our lives constantly reacting, never creating, never leading ourselves toward the life we want. Urgency demands an immediate response. Importance demands a thoughtful response. But most people are trained to react immediately because society rewards busyness, not purpose. You must understand that important work is not always comfortable. It often feels slow, invisible, even frustrating. Important work challenges you to grow. It forces you to face weaknesses, to confront fears, to make decisions that others avoid. That is why most people procrastinate. That is why most people choose distractions that feel rewarding in the moment but hollow in the long run. Important work requires effort, persistence, and courage. Urgent work requires only reflex. This is why force alone is not enough. You cannot force yourself to do what is important without first building a framework that protects it. You cannot rely on fleeting motivation or short bursts of willpower because they are finite, fragile, and unreliable. Willpower can be spent in a single decision, in a single day, in a single crisis. Motivation can disappear the moment life becomes difficult. But purpose? Purpose is limitless. Purpose sustains effort when the world is against you. Purpose is what allows you to return to your most important work day after day, even when it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. The distinction is simple. Force without purpose is exhaustion. Force with purpose is progress. And real progress is never about doing everything. It is about doing the right things. It is about aligning your energy with your priorities and refusing to let distractions dictate your life. This is where strategy comes in. Strategy is not planning every hour of the day. Strategy is deciding in advance what matters so that when choices arise, you are clear, decisive, and unwavering. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you are saying no to something important. Every time you W yourself to be pulled by urgency, you're sacrificing your future for someone else's agenda. This is a cost few recognize and a price even fewer are willing to pay attention to. But the truth is, it is cumulative. A single day of reacting instead of leading may feel inconsequential. A single week may feel manageable. But months and years? They accumulate into a life that is busy but unfulfilled, productive but insignificant, reactive but powerless. Important work requires boundaries. Boundaries are not selfish, they are necessary. They protect your energy, your focus, and your clarity. Boundaries allow you to prioritize the future over the immediate, the meaningful over the trivial, the significant over the convenient. Saying no is not a rejection of people, it is an embrace of purpose. It is an acknowledgement that your life is finite, that your energy is precious, and that what you choose to invest in defines who you become. The people who achieve extraordinary results understand this. They do not multitask. They do not spread themselves thin. They do not confuse motion with progress. They identify the most important actions, the ones that will make the biggest difference, and they do those first, consistently, without distraction. They understand that greatness is built not by doing more, but by doing what matters relentlessly, without compromise, even when no one is watching. Consistency is the result of clarity, focus, and purpose. It is not an accident. It is not natural. It is not a product of talent or luck. It is a choice. Every day and every decision, these individuals choose to prioritize what is important over what is urgent, long-term impact over short-term comfort, meaning over noise, and slowly, imperceptibly, these choices compound. Small actions repeated consistently create momentum. Momentum creates identity. Identity creates legacy. But most people avoid this responsibility because it is uncomfortable. Important work is demanding. It is often tedious. It is often lonely. It requires patience and perseverance. It does not come with immediate validation, praise, or recognition. And this is precisely why it matters, because the things that shape our character, our destiny, and our contribution rarely come in the form of shortcuts or easy victories. So how do you force yourself to do what is important? First, you start by recognizing the difference between urgent and important. You create a daily structure that prioritizes your highest value actions. You protect your focus from distraction. You refuse to react to the noise of the world and instead respond to the calling of your purpose. You measure your success not by how busy you were, but by how much meaningful progress you made. Second, you cultivate patience. Important work takes time. It does not yield immediate gratification. It often tests your resolve. But this is where discipline meets purpose. Discipline alone fails. Purpose alone can feel directionless. But together, they create a force that is unstoppable. The person who is both disciplined and purpose-driven does not need motivation. They simply do what matters, day after day, regardless of circumstance, mood, or external validation. Third, you embrace discomfort. Important work is uncomfortable because it requires growth. It requires facing uncertainty. It requires confronting weaknesses and fears. But growth is never comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of progress. The more willing you are to sit in discomfort for the sake of what matters, the more capable you become. And the more capable you become, the more the world bends to your effort. Finally, you commit. Commitment is the bridge between intention and impact. It is the difference between someone who dreams and someone who achieves. Commitment is not passive. It requires choices, sacrifices, and consistency. It requires saying no repeatedly to everything that does not serve your purpose. And it requires saying yes without hesitation to the actions that do. The truth is simple. Force alone does not create greatness. Urgency alone does not create progress. Activity alone does not create achievement. But when clarity guides force, when purpose drives effort, when intention directs action, then the impossible becomes possible. When you force yourself to do what is important, you align your energy with the future you want, you protect your time and attention, and you create a life that is not defined by busyness, but by impact. Remember, most important work is often invisible. It is quiet. It is slow. It is deliberate. And it is transformative. The choice to prioritize it, to protect it, and to pursue it relentlessly is yours. Force yourself, not with guilt, not with punishment, but with understanding, purpose, and unwavering clarity. Do this consistently, and you will find that focus, growth, and fulfillment are not distant goals. They are the natural byproduct of doing what matters, always, no matter what. Most. People think motivation is the key to getting things done. They wake up in the morning and wait for a spark, a rush of energy, inspiration, or excitement that will carry them through the day. They believe that if they just feel ready, everything will fall into place. But motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. One day it's there, the next it disappears. The real question isn't how to get motivated. The real question is, how do you keep going when you don't feel like it? Willpower alone is not enough. Willpower is like a battery. It can run out. The more decisions you make, the more you deplete it. The more pressure you put on yourself, the faster it drains. Relying on willpower to do what is important is like trying to run a marathon on a single cup of coffee. It might get you a few miles, but eventually you will collapse. This is why most people fail to consistently focus on what matters. They are trying to force action without a sustainable source of energy. OC is that source. Purpose is the internal fuel that outlasts motivation, outlasts fatigue, and outlasts distraction. Purpose is the reason you return to your most important work day after day, even when it's difficult, uncomfortable, or invisible to the world. People who accomplish great things do not rely on fleeting inspiration. They rely on clarity of purpose. They understand what truly matters, why it matters, and they align their daily actions with that understanding. When you have purpose, forcing yourself to do what is important stops feeling like punishment. It stops feeling like an uphill battle. It stops feeling like willpower against resistance. Instead, it becomes commitment. Commitment is an entirely different experience. It doesn't demand constant energy because it is anchored in something bigger than the moment. It doesn't require you to feel ready because readiness is irrelevant when the stakes are clear. Most people avoid doing what matters because it is uncomfort. Table. They avoid it because it is slower than the distractions that promise immediate reward. They avoid it because it forces them to confront their weaknesses, fears, and limitations. But discomfort is a sign of growth, not failure. Important work stretches you, tests you, and transforms you. If it were easy, everyone would do it. The fact that it is hard is what makes it valuable. Force without purpose is short-term. Purpose without action is meaningless. But when you combine the two, you create momentum. Momentum is powerful because it compounds over time. Small, intentional actions done consistently become habits. Habits become identity. Identity becomes legacy. When you force yourself to do what is important, you are not just completing tasks, you are shaping who you are becoming. Energy is finite. Attention is limited. Time is fleeting. Every choice you make to engage with what is urgent but unimportant depletes your resources for what truly matters. Every decision to say yes to distraction is a decision to say no to progress. This is why protecting your focus is not selfish. It is strategic. It is how you ensure that your limited energy is invested in actions that create meaningful impact. Important work is rarely recognized immediately. It is rarely applauded. It is often invisible. And this is precisely why it requires internal motivation, a reason that does not rely on external validation. Most people quit before they achieve because they wait for recognition, approval, or reward. But if your actions are guided by purpose rather than approval, recognition becomes a byproduct, not a prerequisite. Clarity amplifies purpose. When you are clear about what matters, forcing yourself becomes simpler. You no longer waste energy debating trivial choices. You no longer feel guilty for saying no. You no longer allow distractions to hijack your day. Clarity reduces friction because it removes doubt. It removes hesitation. It creates a natural alignment between what you know is important and the actions you take. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They fill their schedules with reactive tasks, urgent requests, and meaningless busyness. They are exhausted at the end of the day, yet nothing significant has been accomplished. Purposeful action is different. Purposeful action is slow, deliberate, and consistent. It is measured not by activity, but by impact. It prioritizes quality over quantity. Saying no is a skill. It is one of the most important skills you can develop. Every yes you give to something unimportant is a no to yourself, to your future, to your goals. Saying no is not rude, it is intentional. It is a declaration that you value your priorities over convenience. It is a recognition that time and energy are finite, and the way you spend them determines who you become. Force becomes easier when you focus on meaning. When the work you are doing aligns with your values, it feels less like a chore and more like responsibility. It may still be uncomfortable, but it is productive discomfort. It builds strength, resilience, and skill. It creates the person capable of achieving the vision they desire. This is the difference between busy people and impactful people. One moves a lot, the other moves deliberately. Habits are born from repeated choices. The person who consistently prioritizes what is important over what is urgent is not superhuman. They are human, just like everyone else. The difference is that they have structured their life so that the important actions are non-negotiable. They do not rely on fluctuating moods or unpredictable motivation. They act because it is required, not because it is optional. Over time, these small, consistent choices become automatic. They become identity. The reality is uncomfortable. You will never feel fully ready. You will never feel perfectly motivated. The conditions will never be perfect. If you wait for them, you never start. Force is necessary, but it must be guided by purpose. You must act even when it feels inconvenient, even when the moment is uncomfortable, even when no one is watching. Action, not intention, shapes your life. People who succeed are not exceptional because of talent. They are exceptional because they refuse to let fleeting feelings dictate action. They refuse to let distractions govern their day. They refuse to confuse busyness with progress. They focus on the few actions that truly matter and execute them relentlessly. This is not luck. This is intentionality. This is the result of understanding what is important and forcing yourself to do it day after day. The choice is yours. You can drift through life reacting to urgency, allowing distraction to dictate your day, and hoping hoping for change to magically appear, or you can decide now to protect your priorities, to invest your energy in actions that align with your purpose, and to force yourself to do what is truly important. Over time, this decision compounds into momentum. Momentum compounds into identity. Identity compounds into impact. So, when the world demands your attention on every trivial matter, when urgency screams louder than importance, when fatigue and doubt try to convince you to quit, remember this: the life you want will not be created by accident. It will not be created by busyness. It will not be created by waiting for motivation. It will be created by deliberate action, fueled by purpose, guided by clarity, and executed consistently. Force yourself, not out of guilt, not out of pressure, but out of recognition that what is important deserves your attention more than what is convenient. Protect your energy, defend your focus, and act consistently on the actions that truly matter. When you do, you will realize that focus, progress, and fulfillment are not goals to chase. They are the natural outcome of choosing importance over urgency every single day. Most people fail to achieve what truly matters, not because they lack ability, intelligence, or resources, but because they fail to protect their time. Time is the one resource you cannot earn back. Every day you spend on distractions, unnecessary tasks, or other people's priorities is time stolen from your own potential. Yet, paradoxically, most people treat time as if it is limitless. They assume tomorrow will offer more opportunities, more focus, more energy. And that assumption is fatal. Time is finite. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. Every day that you allow yourself to be pulled in multiple directions, every moment you react to what is urgent but unimportant, you are quietly building a life that belongs more to everyone else than to yourself. Most people wake up thinking they are in control, only to find the day has controlled them. And by evening, they are exhausted but unchanged, frustrated but unproductive. This is why the ability to force yourself to do what is important is not just a skill. It is a survival mechanism. If you cannot control your attention, if you cannot defend your focus, if you cannot act intentionally, you will be swept away by the currents of distraction. Important work is deliberate. It is intentional. It does not wait for permission. It does not plead for your attention. It requires that you claim it. You must decide what deserves your energy and guard it fiercely. Saying no is not optional. It is essential. Every yes to unimportant tasks is a yes stolen from your priorities. Every time you acquiesce to other people's urgencies at the expense of your own purpose, you are silently agreeing that their life matters more than yours. And over time, these small compromises accumulate into a life that is reactive, scattered, and unsatisfying. Learning to say no is not just a practical tool, it is a declaration of identity. It says, I value what matters, I protect my future, I act intentionally. Force becomes meaningful only when it is directed by clarity, and purpose. Without clarity, forcing yourself is exhausting. You push, struggle, and eventually burn out. But with clarity, force becomes alignment. It becomes a natural extension of understanding. You act not because someone told you to, not because guilt is pressing you, not because urgency demands it, but because you have decided in advance what matters. You have chosen your battles, and your energy follows your choice. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They fill their time with tasks that feel urgent, busy, or necessary, but accomplish nothing that moves them closer to their vision. Important work rarely screams for attention. It rarely comes with immediate gratification. It is slow, methodical, and sometimes invisible, and this is precisely why most people avoid it. But it is also why those who embrace it consistently are unstoppable. Force yourself to face discomfort. Important work is rarely easy. It requires patience, persistence, and perseverance. It asks you to stretch beyond your comfort zone, to confront fear, and to accept that growth is rarely linear. Discomfort is the price of progress. Every time you lean into it, you are strengthening your capacity to do more, endure more, and achieve more. Avoiding discomfort might feel safe, but it is deadly. It keeps you small, reactive, and ordinary. Boundaries are the shield of the focused. You cannot do what matters without boundaries. They are not barriers to opportunity, they are protections for your priorities. Boundaries allow you to decide what deserves your attention, what deserves your energy, and what does not. They give you the freedom to act consistently on what is important without being hijacked by the noise of the world. They turn force from chaos into strategy, from struggle into rhythm, from effort into habit. Consistency is built through repeated, intentional actions. Those who achieve extraordinary results are not superhuman. EY do not rely on endless motivation. They rely on structure, habit, and purpose. They've decided what matters and committed to it relentlessly. Every day they return to their most important work, even when they are tired, even when they are uncertain, even when the world is distracting them. Over time, these repeated choices create momentum. Momentum creates identity. Identity creates impact. Urgency is the enemy of importance. The world will always try to distract you with what is urgent, loud, and visible. It will try to convince you that being busy is the same as being effective. But being busy is easy. Anyone can fill their day with motion. Few can focus on meaningful action. The difference between those who achieve and those who drift is the ability to distinguish between urgency and importance and to act intentionally despite the noise. Important work often goes unnoticed in the moment, but it compounds over time. Small, deliberate actions, repeated consistently, lead to exponential results. A single day of focused action might feel insignificant, but a week, a month, a year of consistent focus transforms your life. Those who understand this principle do not chase immediate gratification. They do not seek recognition before the work is done. They invest in the long game, knowing that meaningful impact is rarely instant, but always inevitable for those who persist. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. Time is fleeting. Every moment you spend reacting to distraction, giving in to convenience, or prioritizing what feels urgent, you are making a choice about the life you will lead, the person you will become, and the legacy you will leave. Force yourself to make the right choice. Force yourself to prioritize what is important, even when it is uncomfortable, inconvenient, or invisible. The small sacrifices you make now compound into a life of focus, fulfillment, and achievement. The real test of purpose is action when you don't feel like it. Motivation is optional, purpose is not. You will not always feel ready. You will not always feel inspired. You will not always feel confident. And yet, the work must be done. Force yourself. Return to what matters. Guard your time. Protect your energy. Say no to what distracts you. Say yes to what builds you. And over time, you will discover that the life you desire is not created by chance, busyness, or fleeting motivation. It is created by deliberate, consistent, purposeful action. The most important work is often quiet, slow, and unseen. It does not beg for attention. It does not scream for approval. It does not promise immediate reward, and this is precisely why most people avoid it. But it is precisely why those who embrace it consistently are unstoppable. They understand that the life they want is not built by reacting to the world, but by directing their own attention, defending their priorities, and forcing themselves to do what is truly important. Force yourself, not out of guilt and OT out of obligation, not out of external pressure, but out of understanding that what is important deserves your attention, your energy, and your commitment. Protect your time, protect your focus, protect your priorities. And the life you desire will emerge not as a result of luck, talent, or chance, but as the inevitable outcome of disciplined, intentional, and purposeful action. Most people think success comes from doing more. They think the answer is busyness, hustle, or constant motion. They believe if they simply add more tasks, more meetings, more effort, they will eventually arrive at their goals. But more is not better. Motion is not progress. Activity is not achievement. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not effort, it is focus. It is the ability to consistently do what is important and nothing else. Force yourself to focus on what truly matters, and you will discover a profound truth, clarity, and action compound over time. Small, deliberate sessions, repeated consistently, create momentum. Momentum compounds into skill. Skill compounds into results. Results compound into identity, and identity ultimately shapes the life you lead. Those who succeed are not the busiest people. They are the people who decide what is essential and devote themselves relentlessly to it. It starts with understanding your priorities. Most people never define what is truly important. They let the noise of the world dictate their actions, the urgent emails, the sudden requests, the constant notifications, the crises that feel unavoidable. They confuse urgency with importance, activity with achievement, busyness with progress. And so they end their days exhausted but unchanged, frustrated but stagnant. To force yourself to do what matters You must first identify what matters. You must ask yourself, if I could only accomplish one thing today, what would it be? And then do that thing, no matter how difficult, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Discipline without purpose is empty. Motivation without clarity is fleeting. Willpower without strategy is fragile. The real drivers of consistent action are meaning, identity, and clarity. When you understand why something matters, forcing yourself stops feeling like effort. It stops feeling like struggle. It becomes loyalty to yourself, to your goals, to the life you are creating. When your actions are aligned with meaning, energy is no longer spent fighting resistance. Energy flows naturally toward progress. The ability to say no is central to this process. Every yes to something unimportant is a no to your priorities. Every time you allow yourself to be pulled away from what matters, you are silently agreeing that other people's urgencies, other people's distractions, other people's expectations are more important than your purpose. Learning to say no is not rude, it is strategic. It is a declaration that you value your future more than temporary comfort or approval. Boundaries are not obstacles, they are tools that allow you to focus, protect your energy, and consistently do what matters. Force yourself to embrace discomfort. Important work is rarely easy. It challenges you. It stretches you. It tests your patience and persistence. It exposes weaknesses and fears you would rather avoid. But discomfort is not the enemy. It is the sign of growth. The more willing you are to sit in discomfort for the sake of what matters, the more resilient, capable, and effective you become. Success is not built in comfort zones. It is built in the spaces where most people quit. Consistency is the bridge between intention and achievement. One day of focus does not transform your life. One week of focus does not guarantee success. But day after day, week after week, month after month of deliberate, meaningful action compounds into results. Habits are formed not by chance, but by repeated decisions. Identity is shaped not by luck, but by choices. Those who consistently do what is important over what is urgent are the people who become unstoppable. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. Time is fleeting. Every moment spent on distraction, busyness, or other people's priorities is a moment stolen from your purpose. Every decision to react rather than act intentionally is a decision to give up control of your own life. To force yourself to do what matters, you must protect your energy fiercely, guard your focus relentlessly, and act consistently, even when the world is noisy, even when you are tired, even when doubt creeps in. Important work is often invisible. IT does not scream for recognition. It does not promise immediate reward. It does not beg for attention. And this is precisely why most people avoid it. But it is precisely why those who embrace it consistently are extraordinary. They understand that impact is built quietly, slowly, methodically, and intentionally. They focus on the actions that create progress, ignoring the noise, ignoring the urgent, and ignoring the superficial measures of busyness. Force yourself to act when you don't feel ready. You will never feel perfectly motivated. You will never feel fully prepared. Conditions will never be perfect. Waiting for the right time is a trap. Action, not intention, creates results. Those who achieve greatness do not wait for motivation. They move despite resistance. They return to their priorities day after day, week after week, month after month, because they know that repetition builds momentum, and momentum builds results. Small actions, repeated consistently, create identity. Identity creates character. Character creates impact. The person who consistently chooses what is important over what is urgent is not exceptional because of talent or luck. They are exceptional because they have chosen focus, protection, and deliberate action as non-negotiables. They have decided in advance what matters, and they let their choices guide their days, not the distractions around them. The path to success is simple but not easy. It requires daily decisions that honor your priorities. It requires saying no to what is unimportant. It requires protecting your time and energy. It requires embracing discomfort. It requires consistency. And above all, it requires clarity about what matters most. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not the busiest. They are the most intentional. They do not confuse motion with progress. They do not confuse busyness with impact. They act deliberately, consistently, and purposefully. Force yourself, not out of guilt, not out of obligate. Not because the world demands it, but out of recognition that what is important deserves your energy, focus, and commitment. Protect your priorities. Guard your attention. Act consistently on what creates real impact. When you do, you will realize that the life you desire is not built by busyness, luck, or fleeting motivation. It is built by deliberate, consistent, and meaningful action. It is built by forcing yourself to do what matters every day, no matter the obstacles, no matter the discomfort, no matter the noise. Your future self will thank you, not for the shortcuts you took, but for the hard, deliberate choices you made. Not for the easy moments you enjoyed, but for the effort you committed to what mattered most. Not for the busyness you survived, but for the focus you protected. Every small, consistent action compounds into a life of impact, purpose, and fulfillment. That is the power of forcing yourself to do what is important and nothing else. As we come to the end of this conversation, it's important to realize that doing what is important is not a one-time decision. It is a daily choice. It is the repeated act of prioritizing purpose over convenience, impact over busyness, and clarity over chaos. Every day, the world will try to pull you in 100 directions. Every day, distractions, urgencies, and pressures will scream for your attention, and every day, you have a choice to react to the noise or to act on what truly matters. That choice defines your life. Understand this. Focus is not something you stumble upon. It is not a result of luck, inspiration, or fleeting motivation. Focus is built. Focus is cultivated. Focus is earned by the decisions you make consistently, by the boundaries you create, and by the energy you invest in your priorities. You cannot control every circumstance in life, but you can control where you put your effort, where you invest your attention, and which actions you decide are worth your commitment. That is the power of intentionality. The life you want will not be given to you. It will not come to you in an email, in a shortcut, or in someone else's approval. It is built quietly, one decision at a time, by the repeated act of choosing what is important and defending it. It is built by saying no to distractions that feel urgent, but are ultimately meaningless. It is built by saying yes to the small, deliberate actions that accumulate into momentum, identity, and eventually legacy. The people you admire, the ones who achieve remarkable results, are not extraordinary because of talent or luck. They are extraordinary because they refuse to allow urgency, busyness, and distraction to dictate their lives. They do what is important consistently, no matter how they feel, no matter how inconvenient, no matter how invisible the work may be at the moment. Force yourself to act when you do not feel like it. Force yourself to prioritize when the world demands your attention elsewhere. Force yourself to embrace discomfort when growth is required. Force yourself to protect your time, your energy, and your focus because they are finite resources. And every moment spent on what is unimportant is a moment stolen from your potential. It is in these moments of deliberate action, in these repeated decisions, that you are shaping not only your results, but your identity. You are becoming the person capable of achieving the life you desire. Remember, doing what is important is not about perfection. It is not about never failing or never being distracted. It is about returning to what matters again and again, despite setbacks, despite fatigue, despite uncertainty. It is about building habits of focus, courage, and consistency that compound into extraordinary results over time. The choices you make today, no matter how small, are shaping your tomorrow. The actions you protect, the priorities you defend, and the work you commit to are the foundation of the life you are creating. So go forward with intention, go forward with clarity, go forward with the understanding that your time, your energy, and your attention are your most valuable assets. Force yourself to do what is important and only what is important. Protect it, honor it, return to it every day. Because when you do, you will find that fulfillment, progress, and impact are not distant goals. They are the natural byproducts of consistent, deliberate, and meaningful action. This is how focus becomes mastery, action becomes momentum, and intention becomes legacy.